This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Well, good day, everybody, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Today is Monday, November the 14th, 2022. Hard to believe we're almost halfway through the month. Thanks for joining us here today. Coming up a little later in the program, I will talk with Iowa Agriculture Secretary Mike Naig as we get the latest developments in the situation with high pathogenic avian influenza in the state. We'll also look at that ag weather outlook and the four-letter S word that's going to go along with it here in the next couple days. But first, let's run down the markets.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
We're at the end of the trading day here on a Monday, and we're turning to Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. Robin, what do we see in the grain markets today?
Well, first of all, we started off with somewhat of a little bit of a pressure based on a surge in China COVID cases. And, that always has an impact on the energy markets, has an impact on grain markets. So that was one of the things that surfaced. But then on the other side, we did see some support coming from the meeting between the president of U.S. and president of China. Basically, some good things came out of that to continue with relationship there. And that's going to be beneficial for imports, exports. And so they kind of worked against or worked with each other there. Now, we did see corn under pressure and soybeans most of the day. Corn tried to come back a little bit. And then even though wheat came back and clawed its way back later in the day into positive territory, it was not enough to lift the corn price. Now, we are seeing a little bit better water levels coming into the upper Mississippi River, some problems down in the south yet. So maybe some of that's going to be starting to work itself through the system so we can move more stuff down into the Gulf. But nevertheless, we were under pressure on the corn, soybeans, wheat a little bit higher. And corn export inspections were at 19.1 million bushels. That was up 9.9 million bushels from last week. So that certainly was positive to the market. Soybeans, 68.3 million bushels. That was down 27.5 million bushels from last week. And wheat was 2.8 million bushels, down 3.9 million bushels. So positive on the corn, negative on beans and wheat. Now, NOPA Crush is going to be released tomorrow, and that's estimated to have surged in October. The estimate is for 184.464 million tons, and that should be the fourth highest potentially on record of NOPA Crush. So that I should say 184.464 million bushels, not tons. This was would be the fourth highest on record. So that certainly would be positive as well. Continued good demand. Now, Argentina's forecast to get some rains, so 1 to 2 inches, and that should progress their planting. They've been holding off on some of the soybean planting. So that should progress some of that. Brazil's soybean crop for this upcoming year was raised the estimate to 154.5 million tons, metric tons, previous forecast of 151.5. So they're looking at a larger crop overall. Of course, it's really early to figure that out, but they are anticipating on crop conditions and everything right now. Now, India's wheat plantings are up 10% from a year ago. So that may have a little bit of an issue as far as leaving a lot of upside for the wheat market.
All right, turning our attention to the livestock side of things, what are we looking at there?
Well, on the cattle side, they were fighting today. They're fighting to keep the downtrend that's been developed recently on like the February, April live cattle. So they've been fighting to keep that, and we really didn't have a very good trigger point or good support under that market today. Now, cash was anticipated to be higher this week by the feedlots, at least for sure. Now, the packers might be pulling back. They're buying this week for the shortened week next week for Thanksgiving. 30% of the animals purchased last week were deferred delivery. So packers might be in a little better position for this upcoming week as far as numbers are concerned. So they don't have to be quite as aggressive this week. So and that's been pulled back a little bit. I think maybe we could see about steady prices, but I think moving higher in there probably is going to be really difficult this week based on what we're seeing right now. The feeder cattle weren't really able to find a lot of support, even though the corn market was lower. Usually you can see a good correlation there. They struggled today, higher in most contracts, but still struggled. So there's a little bit more of a negativity going on in that market, maybe based on demand. Now on the hogs, they found some strength at one point during the day and rallied quite significantly. And I think that might have been tied to the news that came out between the meetings there in the U.S. and China, which would continue to move pork to China. They've been a consistent buyer the last number of weeks, not maybe a whole lot, but always consistently in there. So that positive news might have made the market jump quite a bit, but it did fall back. But it closed moderately higher, around 50 cents, 45, 50, 55 cents, depending on the contract. Now, the national direct price, cash price during the day was down 4.68. We were hoping for something a little bit better because we did see some minor strength in cash on Friday, which was unusual. But it didn't really turn over into today with down 4.68, but cutouts were only down 5 cents. So that might be giving us a little bit of support once the final gets in for the rest of the day.
All right. Well, a lot of things going on there today, Robin. So if folks want to talk to agmarket.net to kind of make some plans and see what their options are, how do they get in touch?
Well, they can call me directly at 877-256-3253 or go to our website, agmarket.net. We have the phone number on there to the main board. Somebody will be able to help you in what you're in achieving your goals.
All right. Thanks, Robin. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right. Thank you. Always a pleasure being on.
That again was Robin Schmahl of agmarket.net. Let's run down those closing numbers, courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart.
December corn down 3/4 at 6.57 1/4. March down 3 3/4 at 6.59 1/4. January beans down 9 1/2 at 14.40 1/2. March down 9 at 14.44 3/4. November new crop was down a nickel for 2023 at 13.82 1/4. Soy meal down $1.40 at 402.20 per ton. Soy oil down 66 cents at 73.88. Chicago wheat up 4 3/4 at 8.18 1/2. Minneapolis up 17 1/4 at 9.63 even. Kansas wheat up 12 3/4 at 9.56 1/4. Oats for March up 7 3/4 at 3.95 1/4. December live cattle up a nickel at 151.57. February down 70 at 152.55. November feeders unchanged at 176.95. January feeders up 87 cents at 179.45. December lean hogs up 52 cents at 84.87. February up 57 cents at 88.97. Pork cutouts up 85 cents at 95.75, and Class 3 milk up a penny at 20.99.
And that's been our Ag Market Recap. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. And when we come back, Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig joins us. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AMPM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, this spring we dealt with high-path avian influenza, or the bird flu, and just like in 2015, it kind of went away during the summer. But now what's different than 2015 is in the fall, it's back again. In some states, like Minnesota, it never really left. And now we're starting to see cases flare up, which has prompted IDALs to take a little bit of action. For that, we're going to talk to Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Naig to get the latest developments. One of them challenges is something that we kind of hinted at and talked a little bit about 2 weeks ago when we last talked, but now, boy, things have changed, and that is avian influenza. Things have escalated. First, let's talk about how many cases we've gotten so far this fall and where things are there and what areas.
Right. Unfortunately, it's back, and we've been watching that throughout the year. And back in 15, we dealt with it in the spring and into the summer, but then we did not have a reoccurrence in the fall. Unfortunately, we've been watching in states like Minnesota and others where this has just kind of stayed at it throughout the summer, and as we've gotten into fall, as birds have migrated south again, unfortunately, they're carrying the virus, and so we've got 4 additional cases now in the state of Iowa, 2 of those being commercial sites and 2 being backyard. And so, unfortunately, we're back at it again. And we knew that the risk was high, but we're dealing with it again. And really, only time will tell how fast we can move those birds through. And then I think we all have to acknowledge that this virus is acting a little differently. And so we're also now thinking again about spring. And we're hoping that those birds can shed this virus, get over it, quit passing it around when they migrate south. But I think we have to be looking at the spring migration once again with renewed focus, because we could very well be dealing with it again then.
And before we go more into that, first of all, that's prompted again that moratorium on public bird exhibitions and everything. Tell us a little bit about what those rules are again.
Yeah, and it's important to get the distinction here. We once again put the prohibition on exhibitions and shows in place, and that'll run again until we go 30 days past our most recent detection. And there's a distinction here that I want to be very careful about. What we're trying to avoid is birds coming from multiple farms to one location where they mingle and then go back to many farms. And what you're trying to do is contain that spread. The movement of birds to market and the movement of birds one direction is still allowed, and that's okay. That's part of commerce. It's this mixing and then sending back to farms that we're trying to avoid. And there are exhibitions that do occur even in the winter months, and so it is impacting folks. But we just thought it was again the right thing to do to try to really do anything we can to prevent the spread and contain this virus. So we're back at that again, unfortunately.
Now, one other thing, I know it's not something you see as often as you do with cattle and hogs and other things, but obviously, no real sales either as far as like auctions or anything like that where poultry could be put on sale.
Yeah, and again, even there, we would really only be concerned about opportunities for things to come from farms, mix, mingle, and go back to farms. And so even an auction that's going one direction, could make some sense. But really, it's these exhibitions, and you're right, it's not quite like the normal sale barn activity and that sort of thing that we see in the other species.
Now, obviously, with it coming back in fall, that's definitely got, I'm sure, places like Iowa State and USDA's people and all them, kind of looking at what's different about this virus this time around and what's changed. Have you heard anything about what differences could have been over this version compared to what we saw in 2015?
Boy, it's a great question, and there's a lot that we need to learn about this. Again, what we saw in 15 was that birds, as they moved north, they were able to shed the virus. The wild birds, got over it, right? They're not sick forever. In this case, though, it's like the virus continues to change, and it hangs on with these wild birds longer. And so that is something to watch. And then, of course, over time, that virus will just continue to change, and it will not be the high pathogenic avian influenza that we're dealing with right now. It will convert to something else, we think. But it is worth noting that there's something different about this one. And really, viruses are different. It's just like you and I with the seasonal flu. It's different strains that we might be dealing with that act slightly differently, slightly different. And, so we're just seeing that play out here with birds as well. So there is a lot of work being done to investigate that and to see how it's behaving. And then again, unfortunately, we have to acknowledge this idea that if it overwinters with those birds when they move north again, then we're back at it. I say that with a caveat that we should always assume that there's something in that migrating population that we don't want in our commercial or backyard flocks. But when you have a known threat, that really elevates things.
And of course, when consumers hear this kind of information, they start to think, oh, what's going to be safe for me to have and what's safe, what's not safe, and what do I need to be worried about? Maybe talk about the precautions that go into effect when things like this are happening to prevent the spread and make sure everything is safe when it goes to the consumer.
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. And this is something we take very seriously. Birds that are impacted by high path do not end up in the supply chain. They do not end up going to food production because we detect and contain and we're dealing with those birds on that farm. And so they are never entering commerce. It's the same with egg production. There are no eggs that are coming off of farms that are positive for high path. And so that's one thing that folks can know for sure. But of course, the other piece is, and again, this is just the nuts and bolts of food safety, is you ought to be preparing poultry correctly anyway. And this maybe serves as a reminder of that, especially as we're headed into Thanksgiving. And I bet there's a few turkeys that'll be prepared. And maybe that's the other piece, is just the availability of both egg products and turkey. I just did a quick look here, and the amount of turkey that's in cold storage as we come into this Thanksgiving is actually very similar to last Thanksgiving, which is slightly down from the average. And so it's not a dramatic departure from the availability. So, there's a lot of other pressures on the food supply chain, as you well know: energy costs and labor disruption, inflation. Those are some of the bigger factors, I think, that are impacting that retail experience and the price that you might be paying than high path's impact on that, if that makes sense.
That again was Iowa Agriculture Secretary Mike Naig. Now let's take a look at the forecast. Well, we started off with a little bit of clouds, then the sun broke through for a little while, and the clouds built back in. We've heard about snow off to the west, and it looks like it's going to be making its way across the state. But let's see what's in store for the next 24 hours from the National Weather Service.
Well, today we saw that cloud cover, maybe a few peaks of sun here and there during the day, but snow starting to form in the northwestern part of the state. Chances of flurries off to the west. Now, tonight is when things are going to start to cloud up more, and we're going to start to see that snow begin to fall across much of the state. It may taper off a little bit in the northwest, but it will be back in full throttle tomorrow, as we'll see snow likely across most of the state. And we will see temperatures tomorrow in the low to mid 30s. Tonight, again, lows in the 20s is what we're setting up for. Looking at the affiliate weather map again, tomorrow will be a chance of flurries in Cherokee and a high of 32. Shenandoah, snow possible in 35. Des Moines, it will be snowing in 35. Waterloo, also snow in 35. Albia will see snow in 36, and Clinton will also see snow showers and 36 degrees.
For more detailed forecasts in your area, tune to your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. And that's been our Ag Weather Outlook. And with that, we're at the end of today's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, and on our YouTube channel. And while you're there, subscribe and click the bell icon so you're notified anytime we put out a video product. You can also check out our free Twice Daily Market podcasts on Google, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, and Podbean. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Mark Magnuson and Riley Smith, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.